She looked like any other woman in the airport that day, simple clothes, a soft voice, nothing flashy. But as she stepped up to the private jet gate, something unexpected happened. Security held her back. No explanation, just a firm, polite refusal. She wasn't on the list. No one believed she belonged there. The other passengers passed by with sideways glances, some whispering, a few even chuckling. Who was she to think she could be anywhere near the private terminal, let alone board a jet? She didn't argue. She didn't raise her voice. She just stood there, calm but clearly confused, clutching a small purse and glancing at her phone. The security staff began making calls. Behind the scenes, whispers started moving faster than footsteps, because what no one knew, not the guards, not the curious onlookers, not even the flight crew, was that this simple woman wasn't just a random traveler trying her luck. She was the wife of a man whose name carried weight in boardrooms and billionaire circles. Her husband didn't just fly on jets. He *owned them. As the minutes ticked by, tension built in the air. Was this a case of mistaken identity, or something more? And then, just when it seemed like she'd be escorted away for good, a thunderous engine roar filled the runway. Heads turned. A sleek, custom-painted jet touched down, larger and more luxurious than any of the others. The door opened. The crew inside didn't wait for instructions. They knew exactly who they were there for. And in that moment, everything changed. But what happened next wasn't what anyone expected. The jet's staircase lowered with a quiet hiss, and a sharply dressed man stepped out, an assistant, maybe, or part of the crew. He moved with purpose, his eyes scanning the terminal until they locked onto her. No hesitation. He walked straight past the security line, straight to the woman everyone had just dismissed. Without a word, he held out his hand to her. The security guards suddenly looked unsure, glancing at each other. The mood shifted. Something was off, and they knew it. But she didn't move right away. She looked at him, then down at her phone again, as if waiting for some kind of signal. Behind her, more passengers and staff started whispering. The private terminal wasn't used to scenes like this. Usually, people with real wealth passed through unnoticed, quietly, without delay. But this woman didn't look like the kind of person connected to power, to money, to billion-dollar planes. That's what made it so confusing and intriguing. Word started to spread. Some staff now remembered a name they'd heard once or twice, whispered in luxury circles. A billionaire who preferred privacy, a man who avoided the spotlight, and whose wealth stretched beyond companies and investments into kingdoms of oil, tech, and rare metals. His wife, almost never seen in public. No interviews, no events, no red carpets, just rumors. Some said she had once been a school teacher. Others believed she met him long before the billions came. But none of that explained why she was here now, alone, unannounced, and being blocked. And even more puzzling, why had he shown up at this exact moment, flying in personally, when he could have sent anyone? She finally took the assistant's hand, but that was just the beginning of what would leave everyone at the terminal speechless. As she stepped onto the tarmac, holding tightly to the assistant's hand, the heat from the engines brushed against her face. Her calm expression didn't change, but inside, her heart was racing. She hadn't planned to make an entrance like this. She'd expected to slip in quietly, just like she always had. But something had changed. The jet wasn't scheduled to land here. Not today. Her husband wasn't supposed to be in the country, let alone stepping out of his billion-dollar private plane. From the glass windows above, a young intern at the terminal's office watched everything unfold, her curiosity growing by the second. She whispered to her manager, "That's her, isn't it? The mystery wife." But the manager just shook his head. No one knows for sure. He keeps his world locked tight. Meanwhile, inside the jet, the crew moved with practiced silence. They were used to operating under discretion, but even they seemed rattled by the sudden change in plan. The captain exchanged glances with a co-pilot. "We were supposed to fly direct to Zurich," he muttered. "Why this stop?" The co-pilot shrugged. We got the call mid-air, no questions asked. And as the woman reached the bottom step of the aircraft, she paused. Her phone buzzed again. One message, one name, that was all. Her face tightened, just for a second. The assistant noticed but said nothing. He simply led her inside the jet, closing the door behind them. Outside, the terminal was buzzing. Airport staff speculated, some making quiet calls, others snapping discreet photos. Who was this woman really? Why had her billionaire husband broken protocol to meet her mid-route? And more importantly, what had changed behind the scenes that forced a secret this carefully kept to suddenly unfold in public view? No one had answers. Not yet. Inside the jet, the mood was heavy. The usual calm luxury, the soft lighting, the polished wood panels, the quiet hum, felt tense, almost suffocating. She sat down slowly, her fingers still wrapped around her phone. The assistant disappeared into the cabin, leaving her alone for a moment. Outside, security had backed off, but eyes were still glued to the jet. Rumors were already spreading across private aviation circles. A woman denied at the gate, now sitting inside one of the world's most exclusive jets. Something big was happening, and no one could make sense of it. The door to the inner cabin slid open, and there he was. Her husband. He didn't smile. He didn't speak at first. He simply looked at her. His suit was crisp, custom-tailored, the kind of detail only billionaires bother with. But his face, it wasn't the usual calm, calculating expression she knew. It was something else. Worry? Regret? Maybe both. He sat across from her, slowly as the engines powered down. "You shouldn't have come," he finally said, voice low. "I had no choice," she replied, not looking up. A silence settled in between them, thick with unspoken history. She had once trusted him completely, long before the wealth, before the jet, before the people who now decided who got access to what. But something had changed in recent months. Strange calls, cancelled trips, closed doors. She'd started asking questions, and the more she asked, the more things didn't add up. She reached into her bag and slid something across the table, a small black folder sealed. He didn't touch it. "You know what's in there," she said quietly. "And you know why I had to do this." He looked down at the folder, jaw tight. Outside, the crew stood still, waiting. And inside, a decision was about to change everything. The silence in the cabin was broken by the faint vibration of her husband's phone. He didn't answer it. He just stared at the black folder on the table like it might explode. She watched him carefully, waiting for any sign of recognition or fear. The jet felt colder now, as if the air itself sensed something shifting. Finally, he spoke, almost whispering. "Where did you get this?" "I told you," she said, her voice steady. "I've been asking questions. People talk when they think no one's listening, especially people who owe me favors from before all of this." He leaned back slowly, face unreadable, but behind his calm, something flickered. That folder held more than just numbers or photos. It held connections, hidden accounts, names tied to secret deals, off-the-record flights. Things that could ruin more than his name. They could shatter empires. But before he could respond, the assistant reappeared, pale and out of breath. "Sir, you need to see this." He handed him a tablet. The billionaire's eyes scanned it quickly, and his expression changed. Anger, yes, but something deeper. Shock. He passed it to her without a word. The screen showed a private news feed, the kind reserved for high-net-worth individuals and corporate insiders. Her face was on it, a grainy image taken from the terminal. The headline read, "Asterisk wife of billionaire linked to leaked documents tied to offshore scandal." Asterisk. She blinked, stunned. "I didn't leak this." "I know," he said, "but someone wants it to look like you did." That's when the jet doors suddenly locked with a mechanical thud. The lights dimmed, and a new message popped up on his phone. No sender, just one sentence. Asterisk, "You have 1 hour to decide." Asterisk. Neither of them said a word, but they both knew This wasn't just about trust anymore. It was survival. For a moment, neither of them moved. The quiet hum of the jet seemed louder now, like it was holding its breath with them. He looked at the message again. 1 hour. He didn't need more time to guess who it was from. Only a handful of people had access to what was in that folder, and only one of them stood to lose more than him if it ever came out. He stood up and walked to a panel near the cockpit, entered a code, and opened a hidden compartment. Inside was a second folder, thicker, older, marked with names she didn't recognize. When he dropped it on the table beside hers, the truth finally spilled out. "It wasn't me they were watching," he said. "It was you. They've been trying to get to me through you this whole time." Her breath caught. But why? He looked at her, pain finally showing through his carefully built armor. "Because you're the only one I still trust, and they know that." He opened both folders and began scanning through names, cross-referencing, piecing it together. In the middle of the chaos, her phone buzzed again. But this time, it wasn't a warning, it was a voice message. One she recognized instantly. It was from his personal legal advisor, the man they'd both trusted for years. "Your wife's been digging too close," the voice said. "You should have handled it before it got this far." She looked up, stunned. So it wasn't about what she found. It was about stopping her from finding the rest. Her husband's face hardened. He tapped a button on the tablet and began uploading everything, both folders, to a secure server. "It ends now," he said. And just as the upload hit 100%, the engines powered on again. But the jet wasn't headed where she thought. The engines rolled back to life, and she turned to him, eyebrows raised. "Where are we going?" He didn't look at her right away. Instead, he stared out the window, watching as the ground crew scrambled, likely still unaware of what had just unfolded inside the jet. "Finally," he said, "somewhere safe, somewhere off-grid. For now, at least." She sat back in her seat, exhausted but alert. The upload was complete. Everything, every file, every connection, every secret name buried behind offshore accounts and private deals, was now in the hands of his trusted external team. If anything happened to them, the truth wouldn't disappear. That was their only protection. The assistant returned quietly with 2 glasses of water. His hands trembled slightly, but he said nothing. He had seen enough to know this wasn't just another business trip. For years, she'd stood quietly in the background, far from headlines and flashing cameras. People assumed she was just the wife, but she'd always paid attention, listened, watched, and now she'd helped pull the thread that unraveled a world built on shadows and silence. He finally turned to her. "I'm sorry I didn't see it coming, that they use you to get to me." She shook her head. "I'm not sorry. Maybe it's time people know what's really going on." As the jet lifted off the runway, breaking away from the city lights below, a strange calm settled over them. The worst had passed. The world they'd returned to would never be the same, but they were still in it, together. Far below, phones buzzed. Alerts pinged. Whispers turned into headlines. And the simple woman once stopped at the gate. She was no longer invisible. She was a storm that quietly changed everything.